Okay, so and I want to show you guys this Markdown language. Have you anybody used Markdown before? So Markdown is super cool. I never use like word processors or anything like that anymore. Anytime I have to write something, I use Markdown. So just create a file with an extension of .md. I call it README. Just that's the most common to call it README, but it doesn't have to be README. So if I put a um, hash symbol, this signifies that this is a title. So if I look at the preview of this, so when you push this to GitHub, if you use Markdown, it's going to format it to look like, let me go back to GitHub. So this README that I've done for our repository, this is done in Markdown, so it formats it to look like this. So in Markdown, I do classes and instances. I can say, if I want to take notes, make bullet points is just a dash. Classes in Python. If I wanted to say, if I want to make a code, we would say we use the, and then the backticks will signify code. Class keyword, make a class. Okay. So I use this is, I think, is an awesome way to take notes. And if you want to have like code blocks, you start with 3 backticks, say what the language is, and it'll format it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So that's, I think it's a very useful tool to for taking notes and for basically for taking notes. So if I want to make a file, I'm in day 2, so I can say I want to make my Tesla class. So I'm going to make a file called Tesla. So if I want to make a file with a link, square brackets will be the file name. So it's going to be tesla.py. And then outside the square brackets, if I put parentheses, I can link to a file. So I could just say /tesla.py. And now when I click this, if it doesn't exist, it will make it for me. So if I come over here, hold down the control key on Windows and click it, it'll say unable to open tesla.py. Would you like to create it? And just create file, and it'll automatically make tesla.py for me.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so if I want to make a class, this is basically the syntax, right? So I'm going to say class, and I always misspell Tesla, so if I do, please let me know. Tesla, there we go, and then pass. Okay. And it's stuck, there we go. So if I want to run this file, I'm going to open the integrated terminal. So as long as I'm in the right place, and I'm going to open this with bash. There we go. I'm in the wrong place. So I want to CD into the right place. So I'm going to CD into demos and into day 2. There we go. Now I'm in the right place. Okay. So I've got class Tesla and then pass. So all I have is just, I've created a class called Tesla with nothing in it. So if I run this, I get nothing. But if I print, oops, Tesla, I get this. Okay. So this is basically telling me the double underscore in the front, double underscore in the back. That's the short is dunder. That's just what it's called in Python. So dunder main is basically the program that's running, and it's saying that I have a class called Tesla. Okay. So if I want to give my Tesla properties, how do I do that?
Use the dunder in it.
Right. So I want to be inside my class, right? So just like we talked about yesterday, I've established a code block, right? So anything that is part of this class needs to be indented. So as long as it's indented, it's part of this class. So I say def dunder init.
It sounds like you're speaking like British slang because they always say in it. So I was gonna laugh out of that.
So dunder init, the self again is just we automatically include self to every method we make. And then if we want to give it properties, we just like any function, we give it a parameter and model. And so we say self.model equals model. And let's give it color. Self.color equals color. Okay. So now if I want to make an instance of the Tesla, right? Right now all it has is just has a model and a color. It doesn't do anything, but we'll get to the methods. I want to make my Tesla. How do I make an instance of the Tesla class?
Let's do Tesla and then
Right. Capital T
model
T Tesla, and then we pass in whatever we want those attributes to be, right? So I don't know, what is a real model of a Tesla? I don't know what the models. Is it
Model X.
Model X? Is that really one? Is that really a model?
Yeah,
That's the one we just saw. Like the white one he was showing is a Model X, and the red one too.
Model X, like that?
Oh yeah, Hiral said sexy. So basically, Model S, Model E, which I don't think there's an E anymore.
No, it's a 3.
Oh, number
No,
three,
it's
yeah.
three, yeah. It
Number
spells
Yeah, you
out
couldn't
sexy.
use the E.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to say Model X, and I want a red one. Okay. So now notice that I've defined my class, and I indented my method. Now, when I define an instance of the class, I notice that it's not indented, right? So I'm outside of the class at this point, and I'm making an instance of the class. So now if I print Tyler's Tesla, now I have my Tesla. So again, dunder main is just the program that's running. It's a Tesla object at, and then this is the memory address where that object is stored in my computer, in my RAM. Okay, so if I make...
Does that mean you did it correctly? Assuming you had an error, I wouldn't give you that, right?
Right. If I messed up, it would... I mean, usually if there's an error, it's gonna turn red. Like if I... Yeah, so if I don't indent properly, the Visual Studio Code will tell me that I messed up.
Okay.
Okay. So if every time this runs, right, every time I make a new Tesla, this dunder init is going to run. So let's just print self. Okay. Okay, so if I run it again, so when I ran it this time, it ended, and like it never happened, right? So if I'm going to run it again, I'm going to get a brand new Tesla with a different memory address. Okay, so when I print self, it gives me this reference. And this is just what Python does to signify an object. It gives me dunder main Tesla object at, and then it gives me the memory address where it's stored. Let me see if I can make that bigger. There we go. Okay. So what if I want to see the color of my Tesla?
Would it be print Tesla dot color?
Yep, that's it. So I'm going to
Nice.
take a look at the color property of my Tesla. So if I run this, I'm going to stop printing this so we don't get too many print statements in here. Okay, so I'm going to print the Tesla object and its color. Okay, so I get my Tesla object and a red one. Okay, so this Tesla object, Tyler's Tesla, is an instance of the Tesla class. Think of it just like an object in the real world. Okay, so let's say we have you just posted in chat, so I'm gonna use you. And is it sexy? Is the model? Seriously?
That's
Yeah.
Yeah,
ridiculous.
there's 4 models, but then there's
Yeah,
one
it
more.
spells it
The
out.
Roadster is not there, so
Elon Musk needs to be stopped.
Right? He's
and
kind
the
of a weird,
Cybertruck is missing too.
he's looking creepier and creepier by the day. Okay,
I know,
so
right? I used to like
model
him.
is it Model X? Model S?
Yeah, it's a
Models.
Model
Yes,
S,
that's one.
3,
Model
X, and
3.
Y.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it. It's S3. Okay,
Yeah.
Model 3. Got it. Okay. So am I saying your name right? Hyrule? Hyrule?
Hero. Yeah.
Hyrule. Sorry. What color do you want?
Let's go with blue.
Ooh,
Cool.
kidding.
So if I want to take a look at Hyrule's Tesla, dot color. So I'm going to see, it's going to print, and let me print out your Tesla too. I'll put a break in here. So there's your color, and let's just print out your Tesla.
What's the wild card?
That's just going to create 8 stars between our Teslas.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay, so save that, run it. So here's my Tesla. And I just freaked out because I thought the memory locations were the same. They're really close. So here's my Tesla stored at this memory location. Here's Hyrule's Tesla stored at a different memory location that looks kind of the same. Mine's red and his is blue. Okay. Make sense? So far, so good? Cool. All right. What did I do? Oh, move that down. So what if I want every brand new Tesla to have a mileage of 0? How would I add a mileage property and set it to 0?
You did kind of already show
They
us.
just the same way you add model and color, you add mileage now.
Yeah, so I don't have to pass in the parameter. I can just say every new Tesla has a mileage.
There's an E in
0.
there, extra a E after the L. Maybe
Did I mess it up? Didn't look right.
Mileage.
There we go. Thank you. Thought it didn't look right. Okay. So
And you
now,
said by default it's 0?
yes. Yeah, because I want it when the Tesla rolls off the assembly line out of the factory, I want it to have a mileage of 0. Okay. So now I've made my Tesla. I always want to say it wrong. Hyrule. Say it again, please.
Hyrule.
I'm sorry.
You
Hyrule.
can just call me Hero. That's fine.
I know, but I keep messing it up. Hyrule. Okay.
It's all good.
So now my mileage. There we go. And Hyrule's mileage should be the same. Okay. and they are. Okay, but I want to drive my Tesla. Okay, so these are the qualities, right? So these are the attributes, or also known as qualities, also known as adjectives. Right? Things about my Tesla. If I want it to be able to do things, I want to make instance methods. And a method is just a function that belongs to a class. Okay. Sorry for the barking. Okay, so if I want to make a drive function, I'm going to say def. Well, you tell me. How do I make a drive method?
That was def
Yeah.
drive self.
Exactly. Yep. So we just name our function just like normal, right? Def is the keyword to make a function or a method. Drive is the name. We have to pass in self. Okay. And then colon pass. Okay. So when I drive my Tesla, I want the mileage to go up. Okay. So how would I do that?
Would you just do self.mileage plus equals, 1,000 or whatever?
Yep, perfect. Self.mileage plus equals, and let's not say 1,000, let's say 10. Okay, so every time we want to drive our Tesla 10 miles, we got to call Tesla.drive. Okay. So I'm feeling like lucky, like I can't believe I have a Tesla. Oh my God, I park it in my garage and I'm freaked out. I don't want to drive it, right? But Hiro's like going crazy. He's going to go out and take it for a drive. So how would Hiro drive his Tesla?
Don't you have to call it?
Yeah. But I can't just say drive, right? Because drive is not a function. It's a method. It belongs to
Class.
the instance of the class.
So would it be Hiro's
So you gotta
Tesla
print.
dot drive?
Yeah, exactly. I would
You
say
gotta
dot drive. Right?
Yep.
Okay, so Harold's driving his Tesla. I'm not. So if I run this, what should the mileages be? Should my mileage be 10?
No, just Hiro's.
Right. So when I run this, my mileage is 0, but Harold drove his Tesla, so he has 10 miles on it. So if he's going crazy, driving, right? So now he's got 40 miles on his Tesla. Okay.
Hey, how do you do that copy paste thing that you just did?
So if you put your cursor here, it's Shift Alt and down will copy it down,
Okay.
and up will copy it up. He's driving a lot. So let's see how much driving he did. Oh, dude, you're breaking it in. All right. Question so far.
So the attributes are mutable
Yes.
inside.
Yeah.
Would you be able to do drive as a function outside, like instead of as a method in the same way, or would you have to write it different?
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you'd ever want to do that. I'm just trying to nail down how it works.
You could. So if I had I feel this is too big. Let me zoom out a little bit. So if I had a method outside the class, it was just def drive. In order to access, I would probably need to pass in a Tesla. And then I call Tesla.drive.
And with the original, since it's a method, it wouldn't operate on anything that's not a Tesla.
Right, exactly. So drive is independent. Drive is just another method that's independent of the Tesla class. So now I could say drive, and I could pass in Tyler's Tesla. That should drive my Tesla. So, yep, it does. Okay. You can do this, but there's really, I mean, I don't want to confuse anybody with that.
Cool. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. That's okay. That's okay. But you're right. So and that's actually a good point. So an instance of a Tesla can be passed around just like anything else, right? It's an object. So just like I can pass a string to a function or a number or a list or a dictionary, I can pass in a Tesla. I can take that object and then call its methods. Okay. Okay. Let's add one more method to or one more attribute / method. Okay, so a Tesla also has a charge, right? And let's say that by default, it's going to be 100. Okay.
Could we also pass in a Boolean, like say self dot autopilot false, true or false?
Yep, totally.
Cool.
Pilot equals, and you want it to default to false?
Yeah, because you have to order it.
Right, you have to pay for it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So every time we make a new Tesla, it's going to be fully charged up, right? And the autopilot's going to be set to false. So what if we wanted, when a person orders a Tesla, they can decide whether or not it has autopilot? How would we do that?
Nice. Hmm.
You'd make autopilot one of the parameters, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Okay. So now what's going to happen if I run the file?
It'll default to false.
Yeah, it'll be false. I think it'll wait for you to define if you have autopilot or not. But if you don't, it'll automatically be set to false.
Let's find out. So if I run this, because I'm creating two Teslas, right? I'm passing in the model, I'm passing in the color, but I'm not passing in autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
But I set the default to false.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see what happens. Okay, yeah, we get an error. So required missing one positional argument autopilot. So what?
Can you do this? Can you do this the same as the dictionaries and say, like, could you put it autopilot equals true instead on line 18?
Line 18. Yes. So I could pass in true. Right?
Well, so could you do it out of order by doing autopilot equals true the same way you did with the dictionary?
Yes. Like this, autopilot equals
Yeah.
true?
Yeah.
Yes, but it has to come last.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Does
what
it
I'm
come last there because you didn't say model equals model X, color equals red? So it's going to
Yeah.
keep the order.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
yep.
strings.
yeah, defined variable or defined attributes have to come at the end if there's positional attributes. That's just Python's rule. So what I could do though, instead of setting the default down here, is I could just say self.autopilot equals autopilot, and then define this as a default variable. So it's going to be false unless you specify that they want autopilot, right? Because you got to, I don't know how much it costs, but you got to pay a monthly fee if you want autopilot, right? So now if I run this, it should be okay. Let's make sure. Yep. So now my car has autopilot, right? No, what did I do? Yeah, mine has autopilot, but Heroes doesn't. So if I do Tyler's Tesla.mileage, and then if I print autopilot, Tyler's Tesla, how did I do it? Tyler's Tesla dot autopilot. Pi, oh, gee, there we go. Why isn't it auto completing? Did I mess something up? Autopilot. Oh, forgot the comma. There we go. Okay, so now when I run it, I get my Tesla with 10 miles, autopilot's true. And if I want to test whether Heroes is autopilot, I would change this to, so his should be false.
So can we go through what we did with autopilot? Because I think there are a lot of changes.
Yeah, it got a little crazy. So I've added a bunch of attributes, right? It has a model color, mileage defaults to 0, charge is going to be 100. Now, autopilot, I set it up to where when I create the Tesla, let me zoom in a little bit. If I say autopilot equals false, if I don't add in an autopilot argument, it's going to default to false. But if I set it to true, then it's going to change it to true. So just like we had default parameters in Dunder init is just like any other method or any other function. We set up the default to be false, but if I specify that I want autopilot, right? I'm ordering my Tesla and I've got a bunch of money, I'll say, no, I want it with autopilot. It's going to come with autopilot.
So what did you do in that? If you go up a little bit, what's the point of line 8 then?
Line 8 assigns autopilot to whatever the user passes in. So self.autopilot equals autopilot operates the same way self.model equals model operates. So if I pass in a model X, it's going to set my Tesla to a model X. And if I pass in red, it's going to set my Tesla's color to red. If I pass in true or false, it's going to set autopilot to whatever I pass in. So if I don't pass anything in, it automatically sets it to false. And if I do, it sets it to true.
So what was the difference between passing it in as a parameter and then passing in the default value in the parameter and then passing in the default value as an actual attribute? Because it only worked when you passed it in as a parameter, or you pass a default value in as a parameter. You get what I'm asking?
Yeah.
You see
So
how
we-
like right now you have the default value of autopilot passed in where the parameters are or the arguments are. But when it was a default value as an actual attribute, we got the error, like it was wanting us to do, so we had to define it, but we weren't. I
Right.
just want to know what the difference is. What was the difference between you doing that? Putting the default value in the parameter side as opposed to the instance or the attribute.
So what did I have before? I can't remember what I had. I'm sorry.
It was just self.autopilot equals false in the attribute. And then I don't think that parameter was up there. Or I think you just had autopilot, maybe. Just like that, I think.
Yeah.
And then go ahead, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think it was just we got an error. So I was like wondering what's the difference between passing the default value.
Okay. Yeah. So I think I had this, right?
Yeah, but then you didn't have that there. I don't think. Yeah, that's what you had.
That's what I had. Okay.
Yeah.
So if I run this, it's going to throw an error because I specified 3 arguments,
Okay,
but I've only given 2.
right.
That's always going to throw an error. If the way I have it set up now, I could pass in true and it'll run because I've passed in the required number of arguments. But let's check out what Tyler's autopilot is.
Okay.
Oops. What did I do? Missing one credit, just an argument. Autopilot.
Or-
Oh, because of
wrong
heroes.
button.
Oh yeah, I did do
Yeah.
that. Okay. I gotta do it here.
Oh, okay. So that's another difference too. Okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's easier.
Okay, so notice both of them are false.
Yeah, this
Right.
makes more sense to me because there's a lot of, before we had a lot of equal signs everywhere, and I was like, okay.
Right. But now notice I said I want autopilot, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But what did I get?
False.
False, right? So no matter what I pass in here, it's always going to be false because I set
Yeah.
it to false. So if I
Interesting.
want it to be what I want, I need to change this from false to whatever I pass in for autopilot.
Okay.
Okay.
Whatever you
But
pass
you'd
in.
also like you said earlier, you'd also have to change autopilot on line 3 to equal false, right? For true?
This is a default. It's just a default value. It could
Only
be
if it's default, right? So
Yeah.
the
Oh,
way
okay.
the way this is set up, every time I make a Tesla, I've got to pass in at least 3 things. I got to say what model I want, I got to say what color I want, and I got to say whether or not I want autopilot. Okay. If I don't want to specify that, if I want to say this when I create my Tesla, right? If I want to be able to say true, I want it, and if I leave it blank, I want it to default to false, then I have to set the default attribute. I have to say autopilot equals false by default. Spell false right. Oh my gosh, there we go. Okay. So now when I set up my Tesla, I say, yeah, I want autopilot. I specify that I want true. But Hero doesn't care. He likes to drive, right? So if we just make his Tesla without specifying autopilot, it'll be false by default.
Okay.
Okay, so now if I run this, I get my autopilot and the other one's just the default value.
So what's the flow of information here? So it's called on line 18 and 19, then it goes to the assignments, I guess. And yeah, like what's that flow of information like looking like?
What do you mean by flow of information?
Like how Python is like pulling information to give you what you need.
Okay, so when Tesla, capital T Tesla with parentheses is basically saying you've got this class that you defined, right? You've got this under init set up for these attributes. So when I pass in model X red and true, Python invokes the dunder init method on my behalf and says, okay, let's make a Tesla, let's give it these attributes, and then I'm taking this instance of the class, storing it in this variable. And same thing with Hero's Tesla. I make a Tesla, it generates an instance of the class Tesla, and that stores it in this variable. Okay, is that what you're asking, Joan?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to understand the flow of information between the it's okay. I think I understand everything except that autopilot. So when you said in line number 8, self-taught autopilot is equals to autopilot. And then you pass in true on line 18.
Yeah.
I think I just need to sit on this one for a little bit.
Yeah.
Like,
Joan, hopefully this doesn't confuse you more, but the way I think about it is as if I'm putting the bar in front of it. So you're basically saying self.model equals variable model. So then you make that a variable so that you can keep passing it in. Does that make sense?
yeah, I guess that's one way of thinking about it. Yeah.
So is it the default that's throwing you off? It seems like it is.
Can we just remove the false equal
Sure.
false?
Yeah.
Okay, So when we say self-autopilot is equals to autopilot, we're allowing the user to be able to say if it's true or false.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So now though, we're going to get an error because we've defined 3 attributes and we're only making 2 for Heroes Tesla. So in order to keep this from crashing, I would have to decide when I make the Tesla whether or not it has autopilot. So if I don't want autopilot, I would have to set this to false and otherwise true. So whenever we make a Tesla, we have to pass in 3. Does that make sense? We have to pass in 3 parameters.
Yeah, I think I'm just trying to, yeah, for me, line 4 through 8 doesn't make sense. It's almost like you shouldn't be there, but I guess you need to have it there for some reason.
Yeah. So this basically is saying self is my Tesla. Self is Heroes Tesla. Self is whatever Tesla I make in this program, the individual Tesla. So we're saying take that self, take that Tesla, give it a property of model, and then whatever they pass in, set it to that.
Yeah, but that's what you're doing on line 18 and 19. So I don't know why you need line 4 through 8. Maybe I'm just making things complicated.
No, you're not making it
You are,
complicated, but this is just hard to wrap your head around. It is. If I didn't have these,
Yeah. What would happen?
that's a good question. Let's find out. Yeah, it does. It's
If it helped, John, like the last time I took this, I got about halfway through Python and none of the stuff made sense. I took my my little break and everything like that, and I didn't even review the course. I just completely gave myself a mental break, and it's all clicking now. I haven't. This stuff was a month ago that I was looking at it, so
No, I
you
understand that. I think I just want to know what happens if, like, do you have to have line 4 to 8? I think that's just my question. I understand everything else, but for
So
me
we
to
have-
matter of logic, like
we
what's,
have to have something in here. So if I just put pass,
yeah.
to be perfectly honest, I don't know what's going to happen. So let's find out. Okay, so errors.
Joan, I think I understand your logic, Joan, like where you're coming from. But I'm looking at the actual page itself, like class attributes and methods, right? So if you would like comment out line 4 through 8 or just pass everything, then it's basically like just saying drive self, like what are you driving? What kind of car are you driving?
Yeah.
But you already
What
passed
color,
it in
so on and
line,
so
you
forth.
already passed it in line 19 and 20, so
So you know what I mean? It's
and
just
based off
like
of the position, so you have model X, so say in line 19, you have model X defined, right? And that corresponds with parameters, I guess you call them.
Yeah, but the computer doesn't know what to do with that information. So you
Yeah.
have that information, right? You have self, you have this model. You have to think of a computer as like a little toddler. You got to tell a toddler exactly what to do. No context or anything like that. You say, I need you to do this. So if you give the computer this information, model X, the color, and true or false, it's gonna be like, okay, what do you want me to do with this? And then so line through 4 and 8, you're gonna be like, okay, you're gonna take that information and you're going to set that first parameter as the model. You're going to set that second parameter as the color, and you're going to set whatever parameters you have, whatever parameters you're passing in, you're going to set it as those things you're specifically defining it to in line 4 through 8.
oh, I
So
got you, Joe.
And
You're
then,
given-
and then
Sorry,
what?
sorry, I don't
And
mean to
then-
interrupt. I'm sorry.
And then it's okay, so you're telling it to do that so that it can like,
So you're giving it the information on line 18, and you're telling the computer what to do with that information in lines 4 through 8.
Yes, it's like handing a toddler a box of crayons and some paper.
Exactly.
Hey, you're gonna do this with this and this.
Exactly.
And then your output would be that.
So you give them the box of crayons, and then the toddler's like, given the box of crayons, it's line 18. You give them a box of colors, and you got all these parameters, it's these different colors. But the toddler's going to be like, okay, what do you want me to do with this? Then you give them a picture to draw in the color and everything like that. And that's what line 4 through 8 is. Like you can't just give a toddler. So you can't just give a toddler a broom and expect it to know to sweep the floor, know how to sweep the floor. You have to tell it how to do that. And that's line 4 through 8. You give it an information, and then you tell it what to do with the information. But you tell it what to do with the information first. It is kind of backwards. I don't know if that's the part that's throwing you off. Line 4 through 8
Now,
is
I think, yeah, let me just, I don't think that's quite helping. Let me sit on this and then, because I can memorize this, like that's no problem, but like I just needed to make logical sense for me. So
Yeah, I think the more you do it, the more it'll start to make sense, because just seeing it repeatedly will help. I think maybe the source of the problem is like if I just make a function, right? If I say def make car, right? And I give it a make model and color, right?
yeah.
And if I just say pass, right? And then if I come down here and I call make car and I give it Mustang.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, that's not the make, right? Ford Mustang. And it's red, right?
Yeah.
So if I run this, oops,
And then you just call like print make car.
right? So it ran make car, but it didn't do anything.
Because it didn't print it out, it print anything out, right?
Wait, why did it crash? Self.mileage. I don't know what I did. Something's crashing. Anyway, so yeah, if I print, so I'm just saying pass. So if I print, right, make model color, now I get Ford Mustang red, right? But if I just put pass in here, if I don't put anything in here, right, it doesn't know what to do. So I can just say pass, but it's not going to do anything, right? It's not going to print or, so basically inside this function, we have to tell it to do something with it, right? So whether we want to print it or return it or whatever. So what we're doing in the dunder init is that we're saying, take this stuff that they pass in, right? Take the stuff that they pass in as arguments to this function, if you will, and set them as properties on the thing, whatever it is.
Okay.
Okay.
And then what do you do with those properties is
good. Yeah. So what do we do with the properties? Now I can say, let's print, I am driving my, and I want to access the color. So I would say self.color. And then if I want to say I'm driving my red Model X, right? Then I would say I'm driving my red. And then if I want to get the model, I would say self.model. And the mileage is now self.mileage. Mileage. Okay. So I'm accessing those properties. So when I drive my car, so when Harold drives his car, he's going to get this printed however many times, 10, 12 times, whatever I did, right?
okay, that makes sense now.
Why was it crashing? Let's see.
Tyler, when you get a second, can you show me what line 37 looks like on the console?
Line 37?
Yeah, when you just print the whole thing.
Yeah. Let me Well, now it's not crashing. I don't know what I did. Okay, anyway. Yeah, so if I just do line 37, it just prints, well, yeah, so line 37, that's line 37. So it just shows me that I have an instance of the Tesla class, and that's the memory location on my RAM where it's stored.
So it's storing all of those properties that you define from line 4 through 8.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you went through the flow of information is kind of what I was looking for. I think that makes sense to me.
Okay. Yeah, and again, once you've made a couple classes and instances, it'll start to make sense, but it just takes a long, the more you do it, the more it'll start to make sense. It's just a matter of repetition. Okay. Oh.